You're watching Man Coverage with Nate Schmidt and James Bonneville on National Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone. This is Man Coverage. This is Knoxville, Nate Digital, and James P. Bonneville coming at you live on September 15th, 2024. This is college football. This is week 3. We've got a lot to discuss. This was not the marquee weekend where there was, 12 top 25 matchups. There was some blowouts to speak of. There was some other games that were probably closer than a lot of people suspected, but we still have a lot to discuss. James, how are you doing today, buddy?
Good. I mean, honestly, there were some questions answered, but in all honesty, you're right. There wasn't that holy crap game. I mean, there were some good games, but they weren't the ones you expected to be good. I mean, you kind of had to be digging and looking for those really good games. So
yeah, we'll get into all of them, but it was certainly kind of a weird weekend. And you said we got some questions answered. I honestly think I have more questions than I do answers after yesterday. I'm more confused about some teams, specifically Notre Dame. I mean, that game yesterday makes the week before even worse, in my opinion.
Yeah,
because that just doesn't make any sense. How do you lose to Northern Illinois and then beat Purdue by 70 points the next week? I mean, that just shows me that they didn't take Northern Illinois, at face value. They underestimated them. They overlooked that game, and they weren't ready to play. And I put that on the coaches. What do you think about Notre Dame? We're going to get into our slate. But before we do that, I just want to ask you, do you agree with that? Does it make you kind of look at Notre Dame's program and be like, how the hell could you have a game like you had last week when you beat Texas A&M on the road in a hostile environment, and then yesterday you beat Purdue by 60, 70 points?
Yeah. No, I mean, because you look at it, I mean, Purdue is kind of fit in line with what Notre Dame wanted to do. I mean, Riley Leonard is not a good downfield thrower, but the problem is they're not that great at stopping the rush. And if you can let Jeremiah Love and Riley Leonard pick up some yards and let them get their short passing game, yeah, Notre Dame's going to win. But I mean, let's be honest. This isn't like everybody keeps going back to the Northern Illinois game like it was such a revelation. This is year 3 of Marcus Freeman, and he's had crap the bed games. I mean, do people forget the Marshall game in South Bend? How about
the Stanford? Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's what is my problem, is that this is becoming a trend.
Yeah,
where he fails to get his team ready, and they fail to show up in certain games, and that's a problem in my opinion, because it's become a trend over a period of years. And this is from the fan base that wanted Brian Kelly out, and then brings this kid in. And I like Marcus Freeman. I'm a Buckeye homer. He's a Buckeye. He's from Columbus. I like him, but I'm just saying I'm not impressed with how he gets his team ready for several games. You got to have him ready every week, James.
Yeah, I mean, you're Notre freaking Dame. Everybody has you circled on your schedule. Everybody, even USC. And honestly, I mean, right now, do I think next week they're going to beat Miami? Yeah. But home against Louisville? I mean, you underestimate Jeff Brom at your own peril. Man, that guy has done more with less than anybody I've ever seen. Like, he's the Mike Gundy of the ACC.
He certainly is, and that'll be an interesting game, and we got that one penciled in here to look at, and I can't wait to get to it. But why don't we go ahead and start talking a little bit about some of the other games that went down yesterday, and get your thoughts on what went down. And I want to start over in Austin, Texas, just because obviously Quinn Ewers goes down, he gets injured. Here comes Arch. Well, that's a big problem when you get hurt and you've got Peyton Manning's nephew behind you. That's a problem, because I've got to be honest, Arch Manning's better than Quinn Ewers. And Quinn Ewers is damn good. Quinn Ewers is one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. But based on what I've seen in the small sample size of Arch Manning, he's better. What did you think about Arch yesterday? And I know Quinn may be out for a week or two, maybe 3 weeks at the most, but he's going to be out for a period of time. James, you are Sark. What do you do when Arch comes back, or when Quinn comes back, and let's say Arch keeps playing as is?
I would stop taking all phone calls from boosters, first and foremost. And you and I both know that's going to become the problem. It's going to be the boosters, because Arch Manning, I mean, it's not like he's some unknown name. If his name was Arch Johnson or Arch Smith, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But he is Archie Manning's grandson. He is Eli and Peyton Manning's nephew.
Okay, take that out of it. Do you think he's better?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, I think granted, our sample size is one freaking game. So
well, I'm just saying he played in some mop-up duty last year. He played in some games. He played in the spring game. They couldn't get him off the field on third down in the spring game. Just based on what we've seen, do you think he's better? Is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think he's more. I think he's more efficient.
Yes.
I mean, that's the one thing I like about Arch is you could definitely tell. Obviously, you look at the style of play. He looks like a freaking Manning.
Yes.
Like he reminds me more of Eli than he does of Peyton. But you could definitely tell there's been a lot of conversations with Grandpa and his uncles about, like, in film session. Like, there's certain things that he does that third down play, especially. I mean, 9 to 12. I mean, you just swore he, like, threw the ball all over the place. He only had 12 passes yesterday. 12
passes for 223 yards.
Yeah.
Yikes.
I mean, honestly, the more I look back at it, I still think Texas has questions all over the place, because they'll go back and look how bad they beat Michigan. I mean, Michigan only beat Arkansas State by 10 points. And if you're freaking Helen Keller, I mean, here's the game plan. If Will Johnson's on the field, throw it to the other side. And then on when you're playing defense, if Alex Orji is in, guess what? They're running the damn ball. And who do they have for receivers? Loveland, Colston, and who else? Nobody.
Yeah, no, they're not that good, but Texas.
That good.
But I'm telling you, I can see Texas winning the national championship.
I could
with Arch Manning at quarterback. I could see it.
I mean, you look at their schedule. Honestly, I mean, next week against ULM, I mean, they're gonna boat race ULM. I mean, you and I both know it. Mississippi State is an effing dumpster fire. I mean, they got rolled by Toledo yesterday.
Yeah,
rolled.
Yes,
and then
wasn't even close.
Oklahoma. I mean, I'm sorry, Oklahoma just doesn't look good. I don't understand what Brent Venables is doing with Jackson Arnold. Like, if there was ever a time to get Mark Mangino on the sidelines, it's now, because Jackson Arnold is a Ferrari, and I don't understand their offense at all. And now you're going into the Georgia game, which Ewers is going to be healthy for. I mean, what do you do? You got Arch Manning.
I play Arch Manning. I mean, I don't care.
I would too.
This is college football 2024. It's big boy time. You play the best player, and this happens all the time. Friday night, I went and watched a buddy of mine. His son is a freshman at a high school here locally. I'm not even going to use names or school names, but hell, I will. He plays at CAK, okay, and he's the best quarterback on the team, and his coach won't play him because he's a freshman. So he waits till they get down by 3 touchdowns. Then he puts him in. He runs one play, scores a touchdown, and then he takes him out. And I'm like, what are you doing? I mean,
Yeah.
everybody here in this, I mean, there was like 7,000 people there. Everybody knows this kid's better. Put him in. If everybody knows that the other kid is better, you have to play him. And everybody knows that Arch is better, and Quinn Ewers is damn good.
Yeah.
This is why I didn't understand why Arch stayed there when they announced that Quinn was going to be the quarterback. I thought that one of those guys would go somewhere else because now somebody's going to be on the bench.
I mean, honestly, I don't understand why Quinn Ewers didn't go in the draft last year. When J.J. McCarthy gets drafted in the first 10 picks, I'm sorry. He would have been top 5 minimum.
Yeah, well, they had 6 quarterbacks in the first 12 picks.
Yeah.
But you don't think that Quinn Ewers would have gone in the top 10? I mean,
Sanders would have.
I would have if I would have entered the draft last year. I mean, Bo Nix got drafted in the top 12. I mean, every quarterback that came out got drafted. So I agree with you. I think he should have gone. I think that was a mistake. I still think he'll get drafted. But now, what's that going to do to his draft stock if he's on the bench?
I know.
It's not going to help it.
I mean, is it going to be like what's his name, Rattler?
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be that bad, and I still think Rattler can turn it around. I don't think it's his ability. I think it's between the ears, and I think his you look at that kid, man, from his time at Oklahoma and then at South Carolina, I mean, the kid got rattled hard, and guess what? In the NFL, you're going to get freaking rattled. It's part of the game.
Yeah, no doubt. And I still think Spencer Rattler may be the quarterback in New Orleans for the Saints, but time will tell. We're talking college football today, though, and we got another game, where I believe Big Noon kickoff was there. I can't remember, but I believe Wisconsin and Alabama. And everyone's just like, Bama rolled them. Wisconsin didn't show up. Don't you think that the quarterback getting hurt just immediately eliminated all of Wisconsin's chances? He got hurt wasn't that the first drive?
Yeah. Honestly, though.
I mean, would they have won? No.
No.
Would they have played them somewhat closer? I mean, I'm just saying that all their chances were gone when Van Dyke went down. Don't you agree?
I agree. I mean, honestly, though, I look at the Badgers, and I've seen I was at the game last week when they played South Dakota, and they're not a bad team, but they're not a really good team. And you look at them like there's nobody on their roster that you're like, holy crap, this kid has real potential to be great. They don't have that guy in their roster. And it just seems like I look at them and I'm like, I mean, granted, we're still early in the year, but I look at them as being kind of a 6-6 team. They just don't have any. Who's their big game breaker? I mean,
nobody.
Their offensive line looks so different compared to the Tilda Chris days. I mean, they're running a completely different offense where they're running 3 and 4 wides. But it is just, and their defense isn't swarming like in the past days. Like the Dave Aranda days, man, they are gone. I mean, are they throwing the ball more? Are they more modern day? Yeah, but I don't think they're a better football team. And honest to God, Milroe played one hell of a game. I mean, that touchdown at the end of the first half was a big boy move. And I mean, I've been talking Ryan Williams till I'm blue in the face. If you don't think Ryan Williams is the real deal through 3 games, you're kidding yourself. And the guy should be a senior in high school right now. If it wasn't for our boy in Columbus, he would be the best freshman in the country by far.
Yeah. I think Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams are the 2 best freshmen in all the country, regardless of position. I just think they both are. And nothing against anybody else, but those 2 guys look like they've been playing college football for 3-4 years. My biggest question is I'm sold on Alabama now. I'm sold. They can travel. They've got they've got a good running, fairly good running game with Jam Miller and Jalen Milroe. With those 2 guys, they can run the football. They've got a big name wide receiver that they haven't had in a while. As far as, since Devontae Smith, they haven't had a guy they could just throw it to every down. And, when they need a playmate, and now they do. Bernard is pretty good too. I like what he's done. And then I'm sold on their defense. Deontay Lawson, number 0, the linebacker. This is when I watched tape last night. That's who stood out to me. Was in the backfield all night long, as well as number 22, I believe LT Overton. He was in the backfield all day. They were giving the Wisconsin guys fits, and they couldn't handle them. And so this Bama defense looked solid to me, and as well as the offense. But Tyler Van Dyke was 5 for 5 when he went out. As I said, I still think Bama wins this football game, regardless of whether he plays or not. But when he got hurt, they were screwed, and that was, I knew they weren't going to win. And I got to tell you, I don't know what the status of him is, but if he doesn't play moving forward, Wisconsin might struggle to win 6 games.
Well, especially in this Big Ten. I
That's
mean, this Big Ten is very deep, and they just don't have you look at the running game. Ches Imolosi is a really solid running back, but would you put him in the same breath as a Melvin Gordon or a Jonathan Taylor? No, I wouldn't even consider him a third stringer. I mean, Monty Ball was 5 times the running back, but more importantly, their offensive line isn't nearly as devastating as it's been in the past. Both sides of the line of scrimmage, it's kind of a shell of itself. And I mean, I wasn't surprised Bama won. What shocked me is the way they did it. I mean, because those D-backs got torched, like absolutely torched yesterday.
They did. And it didn't, the defense of Wisconsin was disappointing.
Yeah.
They couldn't get off the field on 3rd down. Milroe could run it. He could throw it. I just think it's funny that everybody's on the Milroe Heisman Trophy candidacy now, when last year everybody wanted to bench him and said that he sucked. And now he's the greatest quarterback in the world. I think we could go back and pull the tape up on the man coverage shows where we mentioned that he was a very good quarterback prospect. He was obviously new to starting. Yeah. Sometimes it takes guys a couple games, James.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a few games to get, that's how you get good, is experience.
Yeah.
So you're not going to look like the greatest quarterback in the world the first time you play, but I saw enough from him that I knew he was going to be good once he got out there. And honestly, he reminds me a little bit of the guy I'm wearing today in my game-worn jersey, and Cordell Stewart, except he's a better passer.
Yeah.
But he's got that ability to run. He's got the ability to throw it and make stuff happen. And I'm a big, as you know, Jalen Milroe fan, and I could see him winning the Heisman. What do you think?
Well, I mean, you look at the last 6 games last year, he was the reason they made the playoff.
Yep.
You take him off that team, they're maybe an 8-4 team at best. And
Correct.
Their defense is carrying them because they just didn't have the receiving core. I mean, he was a dimension that they didn't have probably since Jalen Hurts, but they never gave Jalen Hurts the complete playbook. They made him become a pocket guy and not allow him to use his legs the way they could have.
Yeah, I agree. And they're using him correctly. They're taking advantage of his skill set. And, he looks really good, and I'm happy for him. And I hope the Bama fans that wanted to bench his ass last year, are suddenly in love with him. And I'm like, I hope he hates you guys, because you all called for him to be benched and ridiculed him. And he wasn't the problem, as we said on this show, bro. As Tim Ryan used to say on Moving the Chains, not on this show, bro. You can't suddenly act like you love a kid when everybody was talking about that he sucked. Staying in the SEC, Mark Stoops, the little engine that could. It's like, every time I watch them play a big game, every year it's like Kentucky's ranked fairly high. They're undefeated, and then they play insert whomever is good in the SEC. Ole Miss last year, Georgia this year, whoever the F you want to put in there. And then they just cannot get it done. They outplayed Georgia yesterday for the entirety of the game. They were more physical on defense. They were moving the ball on offense. They were running over them on offense, and they lose by 1 point. Brock Vandegrift, didn't have a great game. 14 of 27, 114 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He wasn't amazing, but, he was gritty. He was tough. He was doing what he was supposed to do. He's running the offense, but this running back, Demi Sumo Karbaya, or however you pronounce it, he was legit, man. He was bouncing off of Georgia defenders like I have not seen in some time. The game plan was solid. Here's where the game was lost. Going into halftime, they're driving down. There's 9 seconds left. I think they had a first down. It doesn't matter. It wasn't third or fourth down. And they line up. They're about to run a play. Then Georgia calls a timeout, and then they come out of the timeout and kick the field goal. And I'm like, why would you not take a shot in the end zone when you're playing the number one team in the country? I mean, throw it to a wide open guy or throw it away and take the points. But you had 9 seconds. You cannot take your foot off the neck of the best team in the country. Why can Kentucky never win a game like this, James?
Honestly, I don't think they trust their offensive line in passing situations. I mean, anything that was a longer developed play that was 10 yards or more, they were afraid because Georgia was living in that backfield. I mean, Jalen Walker, man, that kid is an amazing rush, blitzing guy. I mean, it is. That was especially that last drive. I mean, heck, I mean, you could have gone 5 wide. That play was they were throwing underneath patterns when they had to go up top.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it was like 2 minutes to go and Georgia still has the ball. I'm like, it's game over. It's absolute game freaking over because Georgia is going to force Kentucky to do this methodical drive that they're going to need 7 minutes for to win that game. And they didn't have the time to do it.
No, they didn't have the time. And I didn't love the clock management down the stretch either, but it's just like, it's heartbreaking when you play a game like that and you outplay the number one ranked team in the country and then you lose by 1 point at home. It's just got to be heartbreaking. I don't know where Kentucky goes from here. I mean, I thought it was a gritty performance. I was like, if they were ever going to beat Georgia, it was going to be right here. And they just could not get it done for whatever reason. But there were several times where I knew that the game wasn't going to be done. First off, I said that we already talked about right before the half. Then there was several other times where Kentucky got down close and kicked, settled for field goals. You're not going to beat Georgia kicking 4 field goals. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's just not going to happen. The fact that their defense held Georgia as long as they did out of the end zone was amazing. But you're not going to keep Georgia out of the end zone the entire game. You can't settle for field goals. You got to take some chances. You have to put touchdowns on the board because otherwise you're not going to win.
I mean, you got to put up at least 20 points. You have to. Otherwise, you're not going to beat Georgia. Plain and simple.
No, you can't just kick field goals and think that you're going to outscore them. That's not going to happen. And you can't get close and be – I just thought they were a little bit conservative when you get down there close. You got to go for it. I mean, you lost anyway. What the hell was the point if you – I mean, I don't get the – it just seemed like they were kind of –
They're trying not to lose rather than playing to win.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we're going to get back into the rest of this college football day. It was kind of a very, very emotional loss for Kentucky. I felt bad for them, but they did have a good game plan. That's why I feel bad. I don't know what to say about Mark Stoops because he did have a good game plan. He had his team ready to play. They executed pretty well, but then they're 1 point short, and it just seems like that consistently happens. With the Wildcats, playing in the SEC as they do. So we'll come right back. We're going to talk a little bit more SEC football. We're also going to get into, we've been talking about all these teams that won. We're going to talk about a couple of these teams that did not win and break down, where they go from here after this.
National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by BetUs.com. Designed for true fans. NFL odds, week 1 and futures. College football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds. NBA odds of division winners and playoffs, Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds, the National Hockey League Conference playoffs and Stanley Cup odds, and boxing wagers. Betting opportunities include versus the spreads and outright winners, also during the game. Use our link on our website, nessp.info, the Bet Us Opportunities webpage, for a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Must be 21 years old, and remember, bet responsibly.
BetUs.com, America's trusted sports book. This is Man Coverage. We are on National Streaming Sports Network. We are breaking down college football week 3. This is Nate Schmidt and James Bonneville. We have discussed Georgia, Kentucky. We've talked Bama, Wisconsin. We've talked Texas, Arch Manning. Quinn Ewers is on the bench for us for the rest of the year. Think about that. Think about the kind of talent you have to have on your team to have Arch Manning or Quinn Ewers on the bench. Think about last year. They had Quinn Ewers, Malik Murphy, and Arch Manning. Arch Manning was the 3rd quarterback last year. That, to me, is mind-blowing. Let's talk about some coaches that maybe do or don't have the talent. Whatever it is, they are in trouble. And obviously, we're talking about Florida State. We're talking about Florida. Let's talk about the Seminoles first, okay? I mean, this is a team, James, that went undefeated last year. Wanted to get in to the college football playoff. They were denied entry because their quarterback went down in the last few weeks of the season. Honestly, they played a game without him. It did not look good offensively. Their defense still found a way to win. They then go to the, was it the Sugar Bowl or Orange Bowl, whatever, the meaningless bowl game they played against Georgia. Well, all their players bounced and they got beat 66-0. And everybody thought, well, Florida State didn't care. They were mad. I think that was a foreshadowing of what was to come because, yeah, I expected Georgia to roll them, but 66-0, that kind of showed me that the depth was not there at Florida State. Now we come into this year. They lose all those players to the NFL. DJ Uiagalelei comes in to be their savior. And here we are, 0-3. Lose to Georgia Tech in week 0 in Dublin, Ireland. They lose the following week. Who did they play last week? I just went
Boston
blank.
College.
Boston College, who actually, we'll talk about them here in a minute. They look pretty good. And then yesterday, they go to play Mike Norvell's previous team in Memphis, and they get chucked in that game. What do you do now, James? What do you say to this team now? Because I've got a feeling they feel like they can't win at all. I think you have to make a change at quarterback. And then I don't know. What do you do?
I mean, yeah, is DJU a problem? Absolutely. But he is by far not the only problem.
No. I'm not saying that.
You look at the receiving core. I'm sorry, they make Johnny Wilson look like he has incredible hands. Their defense is questionable at best. I think honestly, we've talked about this before with the transfer portal. You live by the portal, you die by the portal. And there was a certain coach at Michigan State that did the exact same thing. And sometimes it works really well. And sometimes it blows up in your face. And it's not like Florida State has had bad recruiting classes. They're just not developing shit.
Yeah.
And this is just, you're looking at their first 3 games. Calling this an 8-point game is a joke. You look at the stats. The stats are freaking crazy. You look at it. Memphis outgained Florida State by almost over 100 yards. 19 to 11 in first downs. Florida State had 11 first downs, 2 for 12 on third down conversion, only had 37 yards rushing and 3 turnovers.
Yeah, 24 carries for 37 yards. That is 1.5 per tote, James.
I mean, they're looking worse week to week.
And some of these guys like Roydell Williams, I know he's good. He played for Alabama and was a legit running back. Now he has 5 carries for 6 yards. I mean, I don't understand what they're doing, but it's not like they're just playing bad. They're not good.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting beat by teams that are better than them. Boston College is better than Florida State. I think Memphis might be better than Florida State.
Oh, they're definitely better. Absolutely.
I mean, I think they are after watching them play yesterday. And you know, Georgia Tech might be better. So here we are. You're 0-3. They're not going to fire Mike Novell. Mike Novell.
They owe $75 million.
No,
this isn't Texas A&M. There's not freaking oil barons in Tallahassee.
No,
they're not going to pay $75 million to dump this guy. They're not.
They're not. He's there.
This is red flags galore on this one.
This is a big problem. This, to me, makes it seem more like last year was A, Jordan Travis, B, they just had so much talent that Norvell couldn't F it up, and C, he's not a great coach. And
who on this roster that was, brought in from a recruiting class that you consider a success? Name one. You can't under Norvell. There aren't any. Everybody who was decent for them was a transfer. Jared Verse, Keon Coleman, Jordan Travis, go down the line. It's transfer. And the same thing happened in East Lansing, and guess what happened? It blew up. Heck, look at Boulder. It blew up.
Yes.
You should use it to supplement your team, not make your team.
Yeah, I was trying to think. Was Braden Fisk, was he a transfer? I think they developed him, didn't they?
I think he was a transfer. Hold on, let me look that up.
Okay, look that up, because I can't remember if he was a pretty good player, and I can't remember if he was developed all at Florida State or if he came in as well, but I don't think so, because I think I remember him being in the MAC.
Yeah, I want to say he was at.
I swear he was at another school before that, but I can't remember exactly where he came from.
Western Michigan.
Okay. So there's no one is the answer to that. And I think they have to make a change at quarterback, just because what else do? You have to do something. As you mentioned, DJ wasn't even that bad yesterday. He wasn't great. His QBR was 33.6. That's not good. But he's not like the whole problem. But 9 carries for negative 16 yards. I know that takes in sack and all that, but you got to put somebody in back there that can run the ball better. Their offensive line is garbage. And I just don't know what you can do besides that. I don't know. I don't know where you go from here, I guess, is what I'm saying. And when you look at their schedule, who are they going to beat? I don't know. They play Cal, they play SMU, then they play Clemson, then they play Duke, then they play Miami. UNC, Notre Dame, Charleston Southern, there's a win. And then you've got the game of the year, Florida State, on Saturday, November 30th. That is the game of the year, because who's going to be coaching those two teams? What are their records going to be? I don't know, because we got to talk Florida as well. I saw a stat, and now I can't even remember what it was. I think it was that Florida and Florida State were both is Florida 0-3?
Florida's 1-2.
1-2.
They beat Samford last week. Yeah,
that's right. That both teams had their worst records through 3 games since like 1955 or something. They both had losing records through 3 games for the first time since 1955. Talking Florida and Florida State. As we said, Norvell's not going to get fired. Billy Napier might get fired tomorrow.
Honestly, it's only. let's be honest. He loses next week at Mississippi State. Just start boxing right now, because Mississippi State may be even worse than Florida and Florida State. I mean, they got rolled by Toledo yesterday. Yeah, Toledo.
Yeah, Toledo.
The Rockets.
Toledo could still be scoring touchdowns if the clock hadn't run out. But, then we talk about yesterday, Florida shows up at Texas A&M, and I mean, it wasn't even that close. I mean, the final score was 33-20, but it wasn't even that close. And Texas A&M made the change at quarterback, where Marcel Reed is now the quarterback, but it didn't really matter. They just ran Florida over. I believe they had 310 yards rushing on the Florida Gators. This does not look like a Gator team that I've ever seen. You get what you want. You get what you ask for sometimes. They had Dan Mullen. Everybody thought he was weird and didn't like the way he was doing things, and they fired him. Well, they haven't really been good since Dan Mullen was there. So I don't know. Where does this Florida team go, and how long does Billy Napier keep his job?
Oh, well, that we could get that question answered very shortly next week. But I mean, if I'm Napier right now, honestly, I'd be playing DJ Lagway. You know what you got with Graham Mertz. Give Lagway some freaking, give him the ball, let him go through his problems, and hopefully it develops for him next year. But I mean, this is bad. This is really bad.
Yeah, it's Graham Mertz. I don't understand. They're making a big deal about start. I don't know if you saw my post, but I was like, why are they making a big deal about starting Graham Mertz? I'm like, he's not good, and I'm not sure that's a good thing that he's starting for you. But yeah, I mean, Lagway wasn't really good either, but you at least have to find out what you have with him and make the change. I'm just trying to think of something good that I've seen out of this Gator team that I can talk about, because I can't really think of anything good.
If they lose to Mississippi State, that locker room's gone. They got to fire him then.
Yeah, that locker room may already be gone, honestly.
I think it is. I really do. And then, I mean, you got to win the press conference.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to bring in a name that's going to excite people like Steve Spurrier or Urban Meyer.
I didn't really like the Billy Napier hire, to be honest with you.
I like Billy Napier. I don't know if he fit at Florida.
That's my point. That's what I said. I don't understand the hire. I just was like, that's who you're getting. Like, they expect to win national championships down there, even though we've talked about it many times. The only two times they've ever really been dominant was when they had Urban Meyer and when they had Steve Spurrier. And then the rest of the time they've kind of been, whatever. So I think that the expectations are a little bit, exaggerated for Gator fans. But it is what it is. You got to bring someone in down there that can produce because it's a gauntlet, obviously, going through this SEC. And another team that played yesterday in the SEC and was actually a pretty good game. I think one of the better games of the day was the Mizzou Boston College game. I wanted to see, is Missouri really good? I wanted to watch that. I wanted to, break down their offense, their defense. What do they have? And then I wanted to see, is Boston College as good as they looked against Florida State? Or, was that just because they were playing Florida State? Well, I came away with two things. Both these teams are pretty good. I was impressed with the way that Boston College executed a game plan in their coach's first year. This does not look like a team that's playing in the first year of a coaching regime. It looks like guys have been in this system for a while. I like this quarterback, Castellanos. He could throw it. He could run it. He can make time with his legs. He can kind of hide some of the, the nicks and the warts of their offensive line. He's just a pretty good player. And I like him. And I like a couple of these other players on Boston College. That being said, Missouri is way more talented and should have won this game by more.
Yeah.
I mean,
really honestly,
so.
Billy O'Brien is, everybody downplays because the way things ended when he was in the NFL. And I think the biggest problem there was you can't be the GM and the coach. in the NFL. Like that's a very, very, I mean, you're wearing two hats at all time. You can't be management and be with the players at the same time.
Very few guys can do it.
I mean, honestly, but from a college perspective, I mean, what he did at Penn State after the Sandusky stuff, I don't think he gets near the credit he deserves. He won games with Christian fucking Hackenberg at quarterback. I mean, and he is a good coach. I mean, honestly, if he was a little bit younger, I wouldn't be a bit surprised you see him moving on to go to some Big Ten school. But I think he's going to stay at Boston College. He's from the area. What he's done there is amazing, especially with all the things that Boston College has to deal with. They're not going to have the NIL game that everybody else has. They don't have the recruiting base that everybody else does. But Billy O'Brien finds ways to win. I mean, they dominated Florida State last week, and they look pretty goddamn good this week against a team that was far superior to them on paper. I mean, who on their roster can cover Luther Burden?
Nobody. But that's the point. They stayed in this game the entire time.
Yeah.
They jumped out to an early lead, and I was like, whoa, what is happening? Because Missouri is a really good football team and much more talented than Boston College. But I saw similar game planning that I saw in the Florida State game where they had a plan. They had a very good coaching philosophy of how to win this game, and they executed it nearly flawlessly. And I know they lost by 6 points, but this was a very good showing, in my opinion. And honestly, as far as a loss goes, if you're going to lose a game, this is a way to impress me losing a game. And Missouri, I know they're ranked number 6, but I think they should be a top 10 team. They look like a top 10 team. This Brady Cook is an experienced quarterback. He can throw the ball. He can run the ball. He can make good decisions. No interceptions. I don't think he had a fumble. And then I love this. They lost. We thought losing Trader last year might be a big deal. Well, I like this Nate Noel kid.
Yeah.
Nearly as much. He had 22 carries for 121 yards, and honestly should have had more, except for the fact that they've got another pretty good running back in Marcus Carroll, who had 12 carries for 57 yards. So I like the running attack, and then obviously Luther Burden. He's legit. He is NFL ready receiver right now.
We talked about him when he came out of high school. I remember it was the same day we talked about Evan Stewart, and I was higher on Burden. It was just at the time, Missouri was kind of a dumpster fire, and look what Drinkwitz has done during this time period. I mean, hell, his opening press conference, he was like, our goal is to win the Sun Belt. What, he forgot that Missouri's not in the Sun Belt. They're in the freaking SEC. I mean, but look at them now. I mean, they're in the conversation to be one of those teams in the playoff. Heck, had a chance at winning the SEC. Missouri.
They really could. And with an experienced quarterback, with a good running game, with a big time playmaker at receiver, I could see them doing that. And, defensively, I liked what I saw as well.
Yes.
I mean, it's tough to defend Castellanos because he's fast and he's got a better arm than he gets credit for. And some of these BC receivers, can get out and run. So I was impressed with their defense. And this was kind of a trap game where I thought, maybe Missouri could lose, maybe underestimate their opponent. I don't think they did that. I think they both just are pretty good football teams, and they played a good game. And this was a big win for them going forward. And I'm interested to see what Missouri looks like, moving on. But I do like what I saw. Want to talk just for a moment about the Friday night game. You brought this up when we were having our little production meeting, and I want to talk about it because, I did not expect for Arizona to get schlambassled like they did against Kansas State. I did not see that coming. I thought Arizona was a team that can put points up on nearly everybody. And here they go out and lose to 14th ranked Kansas State, 31-7. It wasn't really a horrible day for Fafita, but they just couldn't get anything done on the ground. I think they rushed for like 50 yards total. What did you see out of this game on Friday night, James? And is this more a product, as we say all the time, of Kansas State being good, or is this maybe we overestimated Arizona a little bit.
Honestly, you look at Kansas State. Literally, they remind me of Utah. This is a team that is always extremely good on the line of scrimmage. And you've got a quarterback like Avery Johnson, who in many ways reminds me of a more polished Colin Klein at quarterback. And when you have that and the ability to control the ball, I mean, Kansas State, it's like playing they're a team that's like a bar fight type of team. And if you're going to lose the line of scrimmage, you better be doing something else. And Arizona had nothing to respond to it. I mean, they were routinely on all phases of the ball losing to Kansas State. I mean, you take McMillan off this game, I would venture to say K-State drops 50 burger on him. Wouldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, he's one of the better receivers I've seen in some time. And I know he doesn't get all the press he deserves because he plays in Arizona. But he even showed up. I mean, he had 11 catches for 138 yards. And, there wasn't much else going on for Arizona's offense. And they knew they were trying to get him the ball, and they still couldn't stop him. But, you brought up Avery Johnson. This guy is a dual threat. He reminds me, back of his game doesn't remind me of it, but his production, like Michael Bishop, those type of quarterbacks at Kansas State that can run it and throw it and get it done. Probably some of the younger folks watching the show have no idea who that guy is, but he was a hell of a two-way threat quarterback and could run it and throw it. And Avery Johnson last night was 14 of 23 for 156 yards, 2 touchdowns, very efficient passing. And then he ran it 17 times for 110 yards. So he wore them out all day long, and they just didn't have an answer for Avery Johnson. That's for sure.
I mean, I said going into the year, K-State and Utah will be playing for the Big 12 title. And I look at K-State's schedule, and there were 3 games in their schedule that concerned me, and all of them were on the road. You got that at West Virginia game, at BYU. We're playing in BYU is always difficult. And then they got at Iowa State. And we know what the Cyclones can do and Matt Campbell can do. I mean, they're a tough team to play in the second half of the year. There's
no doubt about that. And let's just say that Kent State is not good, okay? No. And I'm not saying that Kent State is good. The coaching scheme for this game against Tennessee was horrible. I honestly probably would have fired the coach after the game just to move on. But that being said, wow. I mean, Tennessee could have scored 300 points, James. I mean, they really could have. I think they had 65 at halftime. 65 at halftime. It was 40-0, 33-0 in the first quarter. I think they scored a touchdown right after in the first part of the second quarter. So it was 40-0 essentially after 13 minutes of play. I've got to admit, this Tennessee team is way better than I thought they were coming out. I had some questions about the defense, especially the secondary. I had questions about whether this quarterback was as good as everyone down here seems to think he is. I don't know if I do have any questions anymore because, I mean, he's shown it pretty consistently in the 4 games that he's played. And the receivers are better. First off, Dante Thornton Jr. can make plays. Chris Brazel can make plays. The Mike Matthews, the I almost said rookie, the freshman. Then you still got Squirrel White, and you got Brew McCoy, who didn't even really do much yesterday. But, kid that we had on this show and talked about quite a bit really showed up yesterday, and that's Deshaun Bishop, the running back out of Carnes High School here in Knoxville, who we went out and watched play live a couple of years ago on Man Coverage and spoke to after the game and had on the show here. He's legit, and I thought he was. He originally committed to Coastal Carolina, and then when obviously the coaching staff left and went to Liberty, I believe, he decommitted and then committed to Tennessee to be a preferred walk-on, which I thought was crazy. And now, he was the leading rusher yesterday. He had 7 carries for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. This guy is legit. Dylan Sampson's legit. How good is Tennessee in your mind? And what's the ceiling?
Honestly, I look at them right now, and everybody keeps talking about their offense, but their defense is what really has made this team. I mean, last week against North Carolina State, I mean, they really controlled that line of scrimmage considerably well, and it was impressive. I mean, because North Carolina State is strong. It's kind of like K-State and Utah. They're really good in the line of scrimmage. Man, Tennessee just freaking dominated them. Now, Josh Heupel, I don't know what the hell you're thinking up 30-0 the first quarter and do an onside kick. I mean, that was just plain dumb.
Yeah, I didn't.
But
like that.
I mean, man, I'll tell you, at Oklahoma next week, I think they're going to boat race the Sooners. I really do.
I do too.
Oklahoma just doesn't look good. I mean, why are they 15th in the country? Seriously, if their name was anybody else other than Oklahoma, would they be ranked 15th?
No, they wouldn't. And if they let Tennessee get off to it, Tennessee is all about tempo. If you let their team get a big chunk play or get a couple of first downs and start to build some tempo and some momentum, you're done. Because they just keep coming at you and they run plays so fast and they know what they're doing. And they the way that this Josh Heupel offense is constructed, if you let them get going, you're screwed. And I could see this, going out to Norman. If they get moving, it's over. Now I could see them potentially, having a hiccup game like they did, against South Carolina a couple years ago when South Carolina shut them down and kind of stopped the machine and sucked all the tempo out of their offense, and then it was over. But unless something like that happens, this team's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah.
Miami, same breath. They rolled again. How good do you think Miami is? I mean, Cam Ward has, I know everybody's handing him the Heisman Trophy. I'm not ready myself to do that. I think he's good. We thought he was good when he played for Incarnate Word when no one else knew who he was. Me and you both liked him. So I do think he's a good player, but I don't know. I'm still skeptical, I guess, of the Canes just because of what we've seen in the past. Florida, obviously is a dumpster fire. Beating them doesn't really impress me at this point. Everyone's beating them. But they did put up 56 on Florida, FAMU, and then they put up 62 on Ball State. I mean, they haven't really played anybody good yet, but they don't really play anybody good all year. So, I mean, with the schedule they have, I could see this team winning 10 or 11 games. What about you?
Honestly, though, I want to really get a good understanding of what this team is starting next week. I think you got that run of South Florida, Vatech, Cal, and Louisville. I mean, at Louisville, at Cal, they're going to go across the country to play Cal. I mean, 3 of their next 4 games are on the road. And, beating Florida is not – that's been their hardest game in the schedule. And we just got done talking about Florida. Florida's a dumpster fire. I mean, quite frankly, Chernobyl would have been easier to clean up than Florida. So, I look really at these next 4 games and how they play against South Florida. I mean, South Florida's 2-1 and really was in there with Bama, who I thought they played a much better game against Bama than the Badgers did. Yeah. And you got to play them in Tampa. We're not playing them in Tuscaloosa. You're playing in Tampa, and those fans are going to go freaking nuts to beat freaking Miami at home.
But I still think Miami wins that game. And then Virginia Tech lost to Vandy, who then lost to Georgia Southern. Georgia State. Georgia State. Thank you, Georgia State. So that concerns me. And, USF, Virginia Tech, Cal, meh at best. But, Louisville, Florida State, Duke, Georgia Tech, that's kind of where I think we'll find out how good this team is. Cal's not great, but like you said, going across the country, that's, these people are human beings. So that may affect them, and that'll be interesting to see how they handle that. And then obviously going to Louisville, who's no joke, will be interesting to see. On that same note, before we get out of here, I know we're almost out of time, but I do want to talk about Indiana as well because no one else is, James. And here we go. You just don't think about Indiana football potentially being good, but they had a couple of good seasons there. When Michael Penix was around and when he was healthy. And I don't know. What do you think about Indiana right now, and especially winning yesterday 42-13
at the Rose Bowl? Like,
yeah.
This Indiana team, like, I mean, they really stuck it to the Bruins hard. And Paul Signetti this is a guy who's come up the hard way. And what he has done quickly, doesn't hurt. You bring in Curtis Rourke, who was a very good quarterback in the MAC, and this team is just firing in all cylinders. Like, I saw some people predicting as many as 9 to 10 wins for Indiana. I'm like, that's just crazy. But you look at this roster and their schedule, honest to God, there's a realistic possibility they could win 8-9 games.
Yeah.
They're going to beat Charlotte next week. Maryland, you don't know which Maryland shows up. At Northwestern, that Northwestern's not world beaters. Nebraska, we still don't know who they are. Washington lost to Wazoo yesterday. Michigan State, hit and miss. Michigan's,
not
they're
good.
not last year, that's for sure. At Ohio State, you look at the schedule, we could be talking 9 wins for the Hoosiers. Hoosiers.
Yeah, that would be pretty amazing if the Hoosiers could win 9-10 games. That guy should get Coach of the Year.
Absolutely.
I think they really should. And they play Charlotte next week, who's not a major program, and they're not good. So they should roll. Real quickly, talking about next week, what games stick out to you? We got NC State, Clemson. Obviously both of us are interested in the Florida Mississippi State game. It's kind of like the Mud Bowl. It's like, who's worse? Whose season is actually ending next week? Is it Florida or is it Mississippi State? One of those teams pretty much is done. And then, there's just not a ton of games that really stick out to me. USC, Michigan, I think will be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I'm kind of looking forward to watching that.
Utah at Oklahoma State really is intriguing to me because, Oklahoma State always has that what the hell game in the first 3 games. They haven't had that this year. And Utah is always, both these teams are good. I wish this game was in the second half of the season because they always play better in the second half than they do the first. But that game really intrigues me at the 4:00 Eastern time on Fox.
Let me tell you the one game that really sticks out to me, and see if you're as fired up about it. The 8:00 game, Illinois versus Nebraska. Both teams are 3-0. No one's given Illinois any credit, so to speak, but I could see them maybe giving Nebraska some trouble. What do you think about that game in the Big Ten?
That is you look at Brett Bielema, he is literally a bar fight type of team. And this is the perfect game for to go into because Nebraska is kind of in the same breath with Miami, in the same breath with Texas, that they want them back in the worst way. Like, we're still living in the freaking 90s. I'm sorry. Bill Clinton is no longer president. It is, I think the jury, are they better than they were last year? Absolutely. But let's just pump the brakes a few minutes before we try to anoint them as the Big Ten champion. Illinois, this is a game Illinois can win. Absolutely. On a Friday night in Lincoln, this is going to be an intriguing game to watch.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad it's on Friday because I can tape it and then watch it after high school football's over and dig into it because I'm interested to see that. And then obviously Tennessee, Oklahoma. I
think that's a boat race, don't you?
I think Tennessee kicks their ass. I really do.
Oklahoma is just like, honest to God, I watch this team and I'm like, where the hell are they going?
Yeah. Well, all the questions, as I told you, that I've had on Tennessee have been mostly answered. I last year, the things that gave Joe Milton problems was the wide receiver play was not consistent enough to create the big plays that team needed to be a title contender. And now they've got guys out there running past people and making plays, and they got the quarterback now that can get them the ball. As you know, I think Joe was pretty damn good too. So that wasn't really his fault, but this team is better than last year on defense. And also they've got a better wide receiver group. So I think Tennessee should win that game pretty handily, but it'll still be interesting to see how they handle the road. This is their first true road game of the season. So, you never really know what your team looks like till you get in a hostile environment, especially Norman isn't the easiest place to play from what I can recall about that.
No, it's
location.
not. I mean, it was funny as I look at Georgia and Tennessee schedule when they play in mid-November. That's going to be a game of wills of who forces the other team to play their tempo.
Yeah.
Because you and I both know Georgia's going to slow it down to a freaking crawl, and Tennessee is going to want to make the game so freaking fast. It's like the Micro Machines guy. It's going to be a battle of tempo.
I agree. So should be interesting. Another great week of college football. I enjoyed watching it yesterday. I really had fun breaking down the Mizzou game, the Missouri-Boston College game. That was probably the most fun I had watching a entire tape of football and breaking it down. I just like the way both those teams are coached and how both those teams play. Kind of a physical, old school kind of brand of football, and I enjoyed it. We'll get to do it again next week. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. Make sure to place all your bets at America's trusted sportsbook, betus.com. Thank you to National Streaming Sports Network for allowing us to do what we do. And make sure to go up to Man Coverage on YouTube and like and subscribe to our channel. It's at Man Coverage 2075. Type it in and lock it up. James, have a good rest of your weekend, buddy, and I'll talk to you real soon.
See you, man.
Later.